What's up guys, PhazonFlux here with more Pokemon FireRed. In today's episode we will be exploring the newly found city of Fuchsia. We're going to start things off by going to the building just to the left of the Pokemon Center. Yes, I'm the move deleter. I can make Pokemon forget their moves. Would you like me to do that? Now, at first this seems like a really bad thing to do, but if you can recall, hidden moves such as Cut, Flash, Fly, stuff like that, cannot be forgotten by any normal means. You have to talk to this guy to forget hidden moves. So he's definitely a pretty handy guy when you're done with Pokemon that you need to have a hidden move on, and that way you can teach them a better move at a later date. So definitely remember his location here in Fuchsia. So heading on to the building that I just went into. I'm the fishing guru's older brother. I simply love fishing. I can't bear to go without. Tell me, do you like to fish? Sure. Grand, I like your style. I think we can be friends. Take this and fish, young friend. And we get the good rod, which is the upgraded version of the old rod. Fishing is a way of life. It is like the finest poetry. A crummy old rod would only catch Magikarp, right? But with a good rod, you can actually catch much better Pokemon. And he's actually right about that. Now I'm going to go ahead and flash up on screen real quick some of the old areas that we've been to, and some of the new Pokemon we can get utilizing this good rod. Now, whether you're using an old rod or a good rod, you always have a chance of getting a Magikarp. Now, we've talked about Magikarp briefly at various points in the Let's Play, and I'm very surprised to notice that I never actually went in depth about it. So, I'll go ahead and take the time and talk about it now. Magikarp itself is infamous for being super weak and useless, but if you have the patience to train it to level 20 so that it can evolve into Gyarados, it's worth it, trust me. Gyarados' best stat is its physical attack, but the rest of its stats are also pretty good. And with its ability Intimidate, making it overall a bit tankier on the physical side, you've got an all-around decent Pokemon. The downside to Gyarados is the same downside that many water types actually have in this generation, and that's the fact that it's a physical attacker and its main stab move is special based. So you're not going to be able to make use of your water type too much, at least not in this generation. Its other type, Flying, gives it a nice immunity to ground moves, but you also don't get to make use of flying type moves, as the only flying type move that Gyarados can learn is Bounce, I think. If I'm wrong about that, I'll put something up. So yeah, there's not really much else I need to say about Gyarados. Moving on, in various locations you'll be able to catch Goldeen. Goldeen's evolution Seeking is subpar at best. The only outstanding stat it has is physical attack, and even that's not too great. It does have the ability Swift Swim, meaning in the rain its speed is doubled, so it makes up for being slow, but having to rely on the rain is definitely a big problem, especially in single player. Once again, since it's a physical attacker but its typing is water, means it won't be able to make use of too many water type moves effectively. So overall I would pass on Seeking. Another Pokemon that you can get is Poliwag, which starts out as a pure water type but has two final evolutions, Politoed, which is not yet available, and Poliwrath, which is during the main storyline. So Poliwrath is interesting in the sense that it's a water and fighting type Pokemon. So that's an interesting type combination. It can make use of its fighting type attacks very well because it's a physical attacker, but at least Poliwrath has some good defenses and a good ability to back it up. One of the major moves that I like to give to Poliwrath is Bulk Up, boosting both his attack and his defense simultaneously. Another possible Pokemon to get in various other routes, such as Route 24, 25, and Vermilion City, is Horsea. Horsea evolves into Seadra, but it also has one more final evolution, once again post-game only. Seadra, though, is a good special attacker. It's got decent defenses and a good special attack, and because it's a special attacker, it can make use of its water typing effectively. It doesn't have too many moves that it can make use of, but the moves that it does have access to, it can use effectively. And the last Pokemon that I want to discuss is Krabby. Krabby is, once again, a physically attacking water Pokemon, so that's already some mixed news right there. Its physical attack stat is great, base 130. It's a lot higher than most people realize it is. But its physical defense is, even though that's good, the rest of its stats aren't that good. So it's not really tanky at all, even though its physical defense is pretty good. Once again, no real moves to back up its typing. So as good as Kingler may appear to be on paper, it's really just not that good in practicality. So that's all I really want to talk about for fishing Pokemon right now. Alright, there we go. And also out back, there's a pond for you to try out your new Good Rod on, and a max revive here hidden in his backyard. So those are all pretty nice things. Moving on to a guy with a sign. He must be important. Safari Zone Warden's house. Okay. Wow, he has a rock in his room. Interesting. Hello, ha, no. No, I don't think so. Ha, he, ha, ha, ha. What does the warden say? Alright, let's actually say yes to him and see if he says something different. Looks like it's slightly different, but we still have no idea what that guy's saying. I really hope he's alright. But, explore more of the city. You'll notice that there's actually a lot of Pokemon just lying around in cages. Pokemon Paradise Safari Zone. Sounds important as well. Warden Slowpoke is running a promotion campaign right now. Try to get to the farthest corner of the Safari Zone. If you can make it, you'll win a very convenient prize. We nicknamed the Warden Slowpoke. You know, he has that vacant look like a Slowpoke. Dude, that's very disrespectful. Warden Slowpoke came in, but I couldn't understand him. I think he's got a speech problem. Dude, come on, don't make fun of him. He can't help it, he can't talk right. I'm sure there's a legitimate reason why he can't speak properly. But we're going to go over the biggest thing in Fuchsia City right now, and that is the Safari Zone. You actually don't need cut to access it, it's just a few shortcuts so you don't have to run around the whole city to get to it. But the Safari Zone is pretty famous in Pokemon games. Basically, it lets you pay an entry fee, in this case 500 Pokédollars. You get stocked with 30 Safari Balls that you can only use in this location, and you can't use any other type of ball. You have to use Safari Balls. And you're basically put out into the wild where you get to catch a bunch of really rare Pokemon and some really not so rare Pokemon. It's kind of a catching minigame, and I'm going to show off some of the new mechanics that you can do only here in the Safari Zone. So we run into a Nidoran male, and you see your choices in battle are different. You can always run just like normal. You can throw a ball, which is just like throwing a normal ball, but that's it. You just throw the Safari Ball. You're not allowed to weaken Pokemon. You can't even throw out your own Pokemon of your own. You have to fight them yourself, essentially. The two things that you can do outside of just trying to catch it is throwing bait. Bait will decrease the chances of catching the Pokemon. In other words, the Pokemon will break free of a ball easier, but they're less likely to run away, because Pokemon in the Safari Zone will run away from you. The Rock command is the exact opposite of the bait. It will increase the chances of them fleeing, but will also increases the chance of you catching them. So there's a lot of new Pokemon and several old Pokemon here in the area of Safari Zone. So I think I'm going to go over those new Pokemon just now, but first, before I forget, there's also more or less a timer. You see in the top left corner of the screen, there's 550 out of 600, meaning I've taken 50 steps so far since I've been in Safari Zone. It also shows how many Safari Balls you have left. Basically, once you exceed 600 steps, you're out. Just wherever you are, you get kicked out of Safari Zone. So you're going to have to be a little conscious with where you step. A good trick to obtaining Pokemon without consuming steps is if you just change direction in tall grass like this, you actually have a chance of encountering Pokemon, but it doesn't consume steps. Also, if you have a Pokemon like Oddish that knows the move Sweet Scent, you can use that in order to try and obtain Pokemon without consuming steps. So this place is overall pretty annoying, but you can get a lot of cool Pokemon if you're willing to take the risk. So without further ado, I'll go over those Pokemon now. I guess I'll start off with some of the older Pokemon that we've already seen before, but you can still obtain here in the Safari Zone. So, as I mentioned, we've already seen Nidoran male and female, but they're definitely pretty common here. You can also get Doduos here, and Parises here. Also, if you're playing FireRed, you get Scyther, and Leaf Green is Pinsir. You can also fish for Dratini, which we previously could only get through the Rocket Game Corner, but now we can get it here. This is definitely the method that I prefer to get it myself. Also, using the Good Rod, you can catch Goldeen, Poliwag, and Magikarp. So you can also get the evolutions of some of these Pokemon, like Nidorino, Nidorina, and Parasect, but ultimately it's usually easier just to start with the basic form. So that's really all I need to say about that, and now it's time to go over the new Pokemon that you can get here. First up, we have Execute, which is a Grass Psychic type Pokemon that evolves via the Leaf Stone. Now at first glance, you might think it's a normal Grass type in that it's stally and it just drains the health of the enemy, because it does have access to moves like Sleep Powder, Stun Powder, Hypnosis, Leech Seed, Ingrain, Light Screen, Reflect, moves like that. But if you look at Executor's stats, you notice it's much more offensively oriented. So you're better off teaching it moves like Psychic, Solar Beam, stuff like that. Offensive moves, because that's what its stats reflect. So because there's such a disjunction between its move pool and its stat distribution, I believe Executor isn't as good as it could be. So pick it up if you are interested in a grass type Pokemon and didn't go with Vileplume or Venusaur. But the grass psychic type, even though it's interesting and the only one in the game, it has a lot of weaknesses, so watch out for that. Moving on now to Rhyhorn, and speaking of many weaknesses, Rhyhorn and its evolution Rhydon definitely have many. Because it's rock ground, it's great offensively, but defensively, yeah, it leaves much to be desired. Its only outstanding traits are its physical stats. Attack and defense are both really good, but both special sides are horrendous. It does have access to lots of great moves like Mega Horn, Rock Slide, Earthquake, Double Edge, stuff like that, so it makes a great attacker, and you can even teach it some interesting boosting moves like Curse and Sword Stance. I personally prefer Rhydon to the Golem family, but again, that's a personal preference. Either one will work perfectly fine. Moving on once again, we have Venonat, which is a bug poison type Pokemon that evolves into Venomoth at level 31. Venomoth's only decent stats are special attack and speed, which are both base 90, which is average. It's not outstanding, but it's not terrible. The rest of its stats are complete poop. So you might think it would serve well at least as a special attacker. Well, since this is 3rd generation, its two types, bug and poison, are both physical types, meaning every single move of the bug and poison type category rely on the physical attack stat. So Venomoth actually isn't as good of as an attacker as you might immediately think it is. The only good special attack it really has access to is Psychic. So Venomoth is also wasted potential in my opinion. Next up on the list is Chansey, the unkillable pink blob of death. Actually, you can scratch out the of death part, as it doesn't really have much offensive presence whatsoever. But I mean, come on, look at a face like that. Did you really expect it to have offensive presence? Good, me neither. Anyways, Chansey and its evolution Blissey, which is unobtainable until post-game by the way, has the highest hit points in the entire game. So it's definitely a great tank, especially when you look at its special defense stat, which is outstanding. Its physical defense stat, however, is worse than a wet paper bag. So have it wall special attacks like it's designed to do, and don't have it try to do anything else. You can give it a few utility moves like Safeguard and Thunder Wave and stuff like that. And I certainly wouldn't fault you for using a Chansey during the main storyline of FireRed and Leaf Green, but in my opinion, Chansey is more of a multiplayer Pokemon. Next up is Tauros, also a pure normal type Pokemon. It has really good physical attack and it's pretty fast too. Its ability Intimidate gives it some considerable physical bulk as well. So at first glance, all things are going great for Tauros. The downside is it doesn't really have much of a move pool. It has Double Edge or Return for stab damage and Earthquake for coverage, but other than those two physical moves, there's not really much Tauros can do. So moving on once again to the last new Pokemon that we can get here, Kangaskhan. which is also a pure normal type, and we've seen this twice already, since Giovanni has fought us twice with it. There's not really a stat on this thing that's terrible, except special attack, but there's no way this thing's a special attacker, so don't even bother. It's definitely great all around, and it has a wider move pool than Tauros, but the damage output that it has isn't near that of Tauros. So it makes a good tank if you want a tank. But that's all I really have to say about Kangaskhan. This isn't 6th gen, so Kangaskhan isn't OP, but it's alright, it gets the job done.